Welcome to the Courage 1000 Project, the podcast for women seeking the courage to take the next steps in life. My name is MellyS The Story Collector, and I am on a mission to normalise the emotional cycles all women experience, so we can end the patterns of shame and guilt that are leaving us stuck, held back and disempowered from making the next chapter of our lives magical. Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode here at the Courage 1000 Project. And today we have a really special guest and somebody who's a dear friend of mine, Susan Jane. Now, before we bring her on, I do want to read her bio to you because she's an absolutely amazing woman and I want to get it right. Now, Susan Jane is known as the Intuitist. She's a published author, inspirational speaker, life business mentor, and has even been the event director of the Personal Growth Expos. She spent over 30 years encouraging people to grow, trust, and utilize their intuition to enable them to make confident decisions in line with their true core values. Now, with 3 young children, originally, Susan set out about connecting with her local community. She led a successful project with young families, which culminated in a nomination for the Australian Citizen of the Year. She has also had so many other awards come through. I just love her so much. So I know you're going to love this episode too. Now, I will add her in. Hello, and welcome.
That sounds so posh.
You are posh. Now, today you wanted to talk to us about learning how to trust your intuition and specifically how this played out for you in relation to having all this time studying a degree and then finding out it didn't exist when you graduated. Like, that's a pretty big thing.
Absolutely. Yes, it was. Well, look, because I did do the uni degree, the first thing, I lost you for a moment, there you are. The first thing I just want to do, and this is part of the uni degree, is to break down the question. And the courage to trust your intuition, I look at that and I go, well, what is intuition? And for me, intuition is the communication between our spiritual self and our physical self. So we have 2 bodies. We have a spiritual body, which I call my soul, that spiritual aspect, the spiritual being, and then we have that human side, that physical human side of it. So when the spirit and the physical come together, we create the human being. So trusting that is about trusting the communication between our spirit and our physical. So we're getting that understanding, we're getting these intuitive messages. How do we trust that? So what I wanted to bring to this, the Courage 1000 project, is the actual courage to trust that, because it's so difficult sometimes to understand what information is coming from our physical side, our logic, and what's coming from our spiritual side, the soul.
And that is something really hard to trust because it's not something tangible. You can't actually feel it. You can't touch it. There's no scientific evidence to back it up as such. It's just something you have to know. So Absolutely. How do you trust it?
Well, I'll tell you my story before I tell you how to trust it, because that's a bit challenging. So what had happened was I had my own natural therapies clinic. I had my own house, and my 3 children, 2 of my 3 children had left home living with their partners, and the last one was due to go to uni, and she was heading north and I was looking at going south. So what I did is I put a manager in, I put renters in my own home, and I basically left that environment to go to university in the Gold Coast. So I was living in the Sunshine Coast and moved down to the Gold Coast. Now, when I decided to go to uni, there was a lot of intuitive messages. Everything fell into place. I remember my girlfriend saying to me, so how do you know you're actually going to get into uni? And I remember thinking, I don't, but if I don't get in that course, I will find a bridging course that will allow me to get into that course. And I sort of remember thinking, well, where did that come from? And then someone else said, well, how are you going to do uni and still work here? And I said, I don't have to live here and do uni. And then thought, again, where did that come from? I was getting these messages and it was so real and so honest that I couldn't stop going. Like, that was the focus, and everything came into place to be able to achieve that. So I did get a manager in to manage the business. I did get renters in to rent the home. My youngest daughter, who was the only one living with me at that stage, did get a place in Bundaberg to go to university. So everything, and then I did find a little granny flat on the Gold Coast, right on beautiful Currumbin Creek, where I could have my own little space. I could do uni. I had nothing else to look after, just myself and where I was going. So I did. I chucked everything in and basically came to the Gold Coast to study full time. And I was 48 years old at the time. So I completed my 3-year uni degree when I turned 50.
How was that, going into uni as a mature age student? Like, that's scary in itself.
Yeah, it wasn't scary for me as much as, because you're so focused on where you're going. And again, your intuition is guiding you, and you don't realise you're following it.
Yeah.
But you ask any of my friends, you ask my family, they thought I was freaking crazy.
And that's one of the things that comes up with our intuition. We do things that seem to defy traditional logic.
Yeah, and yet it was like so logical to me. When I was in my natural therapist clinic, I could work with, say, 3 or 4 clients a day. It was physically taking a toll on me and emotionally taking a toll on me, because I was self-sufficient but living on my own. So it was taking the toll, and I knew that I wanted to reach out to more people. Now, I don't know why, Melly, and I have to put it down to my intuition, to my soul purpose. I know that I am destined for bigger things, but I'm also very frightened and scared sometimes to go for those bigger things. So I've always had this seed of self-doubt in me. When I had my I had 3 children in 3 years. So I worked out what was causing it and stopped, of course, as we do. But in that time, and like you said in the bio, I was nominated for Australian Citizen of the Year. I still didn't feel good enough. I still didn't feel like I was achieving what I needed to achieve. I remember getting that award or getting that nomination and fluffing it off like it didn't mean anything. It wasn't until like 12 years later that I went, holy shit, not many people get nominated for Australian Citizen. I mean, okay, I didn't win it. That's why I wasn't good enough in my eyes.
Yeah.
But how many people get nominated?
Yeah, that is a big thing. That's a huge thing, to be nominated for an award like that. And it's quite interesting that your self-worth at that time was like, oh, it's nothing. Not even allowing yourself to step into it.
Well, it helps when you're living with a narcissist or you're married to one, I can assure you. So where I thought these niggling self-doubts were coming through, I certainly was in the environment to allow lots more external self-doubts to come through as well. So there's constantly getting these self-doubts. So I'd gone through this Australian, being nominated for that, and I pushed off, like I wasn't good enough for that. I didn't deserve that, and yet I was nominated by somebody else, not by me. Then so with the uni, it was like I wanted to help more people, couldn't do that in my environment where I was at, so I decided to go to uni. And I studied a public health degree. Now, again, I had all these little niggling doubts that when I had the little niggling doubts, I'd sort of put it out there, because one of the things I say about intuition is you ask, you receive, and you action. So when I get these niggling doubts, I would ask, and I'd say, well, is this what I'm supposed to be? What's going on here? And you would ask. And when you ask, you're open to receiving. You don't ask without wanting some answers. So everybody that is sitting there and going, I don't like my life and I don't like where I am, you're not asking. You're not asking for help, and you're not asking for guidance. And if you don't ask, you're not open to receive it. And if you do receive it, if you're getting that information because you're not open, because you're not asked, you're not seeing it. You're not aware of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. If you don't ask, you're not open.
So what were you asking then during this time of the uni degree? Because you said you've had these niggling doubts. So what were you asking?
the niggling doubts are probably more the physical aspect of it, whereas the intuition side of it is that guidance and that pushing forward. So I would go, okay, I want to help more people. How do I do that? Like, I can't do that in this environment that I'm in as a clinical a natural therapist. I just couldn't help enough people for what I wanted. I needed to go further. And the information came through. Uni, you need to get some credentials. You need to get some understanding behind it. And I went, oh, okay. The niggling doubt comes in with, what am I going to study? The niggling doubt comes in, oh, am I good enough to do that? The niggling doubt is always more of a physical element to it. Yeah. So, and it's more of the logic side of us, not the imagination, intuitive side of us. Yeah. So you got these doubts coming through, and again, the doubts are exposed when your friends say, what makes you think you can get into uni? And you sort of go, oh, okay, but the intuition takes over. So in going along that way, every time I get a niggling down, I'd say, okay, well, am I supposed to be doing this? Is this where I'm meant to be going? What am I supposed to be doing? Show me. I'm sick of this. Show me some signs.
I love that angry stage.
And it's still asking. I would go, like, sometimes I'd get the deck of cards out because I was writing to my cards at that stage, get the deck of cards out, and I'd say, okay, I don't want a fluffy answer. I want a yes, no answer. Am I supposed to be doing this? And you know what? Like, in a deck of 54 cards or whatever it was, you might have had one yes and one no. And then there was lots of ones that you could take as a yes or a no. But there could be a definite yes and a definite no. In this deck of cards that I had, I got the yes. And I thought to myself, out of 54 or 57, whatever, how many cards there was, how synchronistic is getting the exact card that you're asking for. And that was that intuitive guidance that helped me go forward to do uni. So shucked everything in down there, up there, moved to the Gold Coast, did 3 years of uni. I was working 3 part-times, full-time university. I was working 3 part-time jobs while I was doing it. So I worked at SeaWorld 2 days a week. I worked as a Indigenous tutor. Sorry, an Indigenous tutor. I'd help the Indigenous community at uni. And then I was doing sports trainer, which was a Saturday running around the sports field doing the training and strapping and things like that, which I've done for 25 years. Yeah. So I had these 3 part-time jobs, working full-time as uni. It was 3 years of just me, focusing on me, no children. I mean, of course, you helped the kids out when you needed it, but they weren't under me. Focusing on me and who I was and what I was doing and where I was going. But before that, I had done like 4 years prior to that, I had done a life coaching course as well. That was before, no, except it was longer than that, actually. It was in the 90s. It was before Tony Robbins, was when he was Anthony Robbins, before he became Tony Robbins. That I did.
Before life coaching was actually accepted as an actual career choice.
Absolutely. So I don't have the credentials for that because it wasn't a government run, like a government guaranteed course. So I don't have credentials. I've got the course, but I don't have the official credentials. So that's why I did a public health degree.
So what happened when you graduated then?
So I did the 3 year. This is seeds of self-doubt. Hey, listen to this. What happened was I did the 3 year course. 6 months after I graduated, the government changed hands. When the government changed hands, I did a public health degree, remember? I did a public health degree on health promotion. 6 months after I finished, the government changed and they took out all of the public health positions that were there for my job. I had studied for 3 years and there was no job at the end of it. I studied public health. You had to go into the public health system, and I did. And I studied health promotion, and they were all gone. There was they made redundant. I think it was something like 6,000 to 7,000 jobs that year. and made redundant, and I think about 3,000 of them were in the health promotion area. So I could have moved states, to get a job. Certainly some of the people that I went through uni with did, but that's not what I wanted to do. So I had done a 3-year uni degree that I intuitively knew I had to do, and it's cost me over $30,000 to do it, and I had nothing at the end. I couldn't get into the private sector because everybody that was in the public sector had gone to the private sector. Yeah. And you just didn't know. So this was all in the works when we were graduating, but none of us knew about it. So to know that you did everything right, intuitively right, by my soul's purpose, and yet to come out of it 3 years later and think, I chucked in my business, I chucked in my home, I chucked in my kids, I chucked in everything to do this, and I've got nothing, absolutely nothing, and I'm $30,000 in the red. Yeah.
What was your intuition doing at that point?
Well, I don't know whether
that would have definitely taken over.
Sorry?
That self-doubt would have definitely taken over and gone, did I actually listen to it correctly? Have I heard my intuition?
Yeah, I know, exactly. And so at that stage, my intuition was numbed out by my crying, by my blubbering, by my pity, by my feel sorry for me. Look what's happened to my life. I just didn't know what to do. I just didn't know where to go. And I had to take track of it. And at this particular stage, I was applying for jobs, applying. I had just done a uni degree. I should be on 50,000+ a year. Nothing. I had to take on a little receptionist front desk position after all the uni, after nominated for Australian Citizen, after winning, award, doing courses. I had done a Certificate 4 of Natural Therapies. I had done a bachelor's degree in public health and health promotion. I had done a Certificate 4 in trainer and assessor. I had done everything and I had nothing.
Oh, that would have been so frustrating to get to that point.
Again, the self-doubt, and I had left my relationship at that stage, so at least I'd got rid of a lot of that self-doubt around me. The people that I lived with thought teachers were, you teach because you can't do. With that was their attitude, and it's like, well, you're getting all this negativity, self-doubt around you. It just sort of starts to overwhelm. But anyway, in the long run, that was when I went, well, you know what? I've got all this knowledge from the uni degree. I've got an understanding on how to write better. I've got an understanding of how to use IT, computers, which I didn't have before. I've got an understanding of how to structure better when you're writing. I've got all these skills that I've picked up. Let's see if I can do something with that. So that's when I started writing my book, Intuitive Flowers, Empowering Your Emotional Goals. And I really, again, there's a lot of self-doubt, still a lot of self-doubt about it. And I really stuffed the book up. Really stuffed the book up. Went right into too much details. You just couldn't read it. It was like a reference book. And it was probably a couple of years later, somebody said to me, it might even be you, Melly, or somebody else has said to me, well, if it's like a reference book, why don't you make it a course, online courses? And it was like, oh, ding. Start to go, hang on.
That conversation does sound familiar.
Yeah, it could have been. But you start to go, hang on, all this stuff that's happening, all that time that self-doubt was there, it's allowed me to look at something a little bit differently and try and grab the best parts of it and take that forward. Because if you're not grabbing hold of the best parts, then you might as well just give up there and then. Yes, there's a lot of crappy stuff that happens. Yes, there's a lot of negativity, but there's a lot of good stuff too. We get a lot of good stuff out of that we can take forward. And that's what I did. I went, okay, get this knowledge, let's get writing. And I started writing, and my intuition was coming through very, very loud when I was writing, like when you were writing your book, Mel.
Yeah.
It starts to come through and it starts to flow and you start to get that information. My logic kicked in a little bit too much, and that's why all the detail came in as well. But I had to get that understanding. If a petal, a flower petal means something for a business that means attraction, how are you doing your marketing?
Yeah.
I want to know exactly what that is. I don't have to share all that information. That's where I went wrong. I don't have to share all that information all at once.
We're oversharers, we know.
That helps when you're an empath. You do tend to do that.
Yeah.
So all these little seeds of self-doubt. What I've learned now is to allow those seeds of self-doubt to come through. It's okay to have them. It's not an issue. It's not a problem. Allow those seeds to come through because it gives you an opportunity to ask.
I like it.
That's when you start to open up your intuition. So I've got a little bit of a doubt. Okay, can I, what was the next thing I wanted to do? I want to do, pendulums. Okay, so I've got all my little pendulums. I want to do a course on pendulums, how to do pendulums. Basic course, really easy. Should I do that? And then go to bed. And the next morning, you'll get the answer. You'll get an understanding of it. And if you don't get it straight away, you're open to get an understanding for it. You're open to get some information. And that's what's really, really important.
I like it. I like it. Okay, I want to go back to the emotional cycles that you've been going throughout this entire story, because part of the Courage 1000 project is that it is supporting the mission to normalize the emotional cycles that all women go through. Yep. So if I'm listening correctly, you've been starting off pretty much every time with self-doubt, which is fear, going, you can't do this, how dare you?
Who gives you the right to think you can do that?
Exactly. The little princess in us stamping her foot going, I don't want to. And then from there, you've moved into the next stage, which is that loving yourself and forgiving yourself for having this fear and going, okay, yes, I'm fearful, but I'm moving forward anyway. And then you moved into that state of self-belief.
Yep.
It was, I can do this. I am doing this. I am moving. I am leaving everything.
And it doesn't always take away the fear. It's just stronger than the fear.
Yes. Yeah. Because then from there, that's where I believe your intuition kicks in. Once you've got fear out of the way, you're loving yourself, you believe in yourself, intuition can come through strongly.
Yes.
And I feel that's exactly the journey that you've been on.
Yep. Yep.
I like it. I like it. So what happened for you then after that? Because there's a fifth stage of self, which is just an awesome stage where life becomes magical. So what were the magical next steps for you?
Well, and it sounds like it's a step and it sounds like it's really easy, but yes, it was over a period of a few years, I can assure you. So what had happened is I wrote the book. That was a flop. Yeah, okay. We had to rewrite it, got it a little bit better, and then I created these online courses. Now, of course, having these online courses is fine, but you've got to create other things with your business. And that's when I started to develop other things. And I can assure you, when this was happening, I went off on lots of different tangents. So I did the Personal Growth Expo. That was 2 years of Personal Growth Expo, won International Business Awards for that. That was all very good, but it just wasn't right. It wasn't where I needed to be. And remember, I've got this yearning, like this life purpose from my spirit that keeps on going. You need to do more. This is not where I need to be. You need to do more. So I've got this constant feeling that I have to be out there more. Now, when I was back in, say, with children and everything else, we didn't have internet or anything. So consequently, being an influencer, doing podcasts, you didn't do anything like that. All you had was TV or newspapers. So it didn't really make sense to me then. It's starting to make sense to me now. And it's podcasts and it's doing talks, doing TED Talks, doing interviews, different things like that I understand now that is where I need to go. But of course, it's okay to say, and I remember saying this when I was a kid, I'm going to be on stage. It's all right to say that because that's all I knew then as a kid. I was going to be on stage. I had my own dance school by the age of 18, so I was definitely going that way. So it's okay to say you're going to be on stage, but I didn't know how. And I remember going to a seminar once, and this was before I went to uni. And I remember thinking there was a lady up there doing personal development and talking about personal development. And I remember thinking, that's what I'm going to do. It's not being on stage dancing or singing, and I wasn't a good singer, I can assure you. Wasn't being on stage for that. It was being on stage for talking. And then I'm going, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? And it was all about sharing my information. I had no information. If you asked me probably 10 years ago, before I went to uni, what's happened in your life, I'd say, oh, nothing, I've had a boring life. And yet when I think back on it, I have had an extremely fulfilling life. 3 kids in 3 years. I've left my body 3 times. I have done a life coaching course. I've owned a 90-acre organic crop farm. When the kids were little, I used to play in a band. I had my own dance school at the age of 18. Rah, rah, rah. And here it goes. For 25 years, I've worked as a sports trainer. I've done a lot. And it's not until you start to reflect back and you go, holy shit, I have done a lot. And now I want to share that information. So when you're asking me about that next stage, my next stage is all about, which is what I'm doing now, it's about sharing the information that I have understood and learned, and it's in the manner of empowering. And I don't like the word empowering that much because it means I give you permission, and I don't want to give you permission. I like empowering. I like to empower. So people, women mainly, can come out and feel confident in the courage to trust their intuition and get rid of a lot of those self-doubts.
I like it. It's almost like you needed exactly the experiences that you've had, so you have something to reference when you're doing these speeches, when you're standing on stage.
Yeah, I don't want to tell you. I just want to explain to you, this is what I did. This is what happened to me. Can that help you? Can you get a learning from it, an understanding from it? So that's where I go. It's all about, I love teaching people to trust their gut, teaching people to sort of go, I can do this.
I like it. I like it. Okay. Final question for you.
Okay.
If you could go back in time to talk to yourself before this all started, what would you say to yourself?
Oh, that's a little bit hard, because I really think there's times where I wish I had stepped up and said what I was feeling. I remember this one particular time when I was in primary school and I was heading home from primary school, and I was with my sister, and I said to my sister, Mum's in a bad mood. Look out, Mum's in a bad mood. And my sister said, well, how do you know? We're not even there. Now, Mum being in a bad mood could have been her period. I didn't understand what periods were. I was in primary school. So I'm not saying my mum was always in a bad mood, but I knew she was this particular time. And when I got home, my older sister really gave me a hard time, because she almost blamed me for Mum being in a bad mood, because I called it.
Interesting.
When I left school. It was a real turning point for me to go, shut down, don't talk about other things, because I thought everybody knew when you walked into a room. I could tell everybody what everybody's emotions were. I got that. That was pretty easy. I didn't understand that other people couldn't do that. So walking out of school, at primary school, and going, Mum's in a bad mood, and then getting roused on by my sister when we got home because Mum was in a bad mood, made me stop saying what I was feeling.
Yeah.
That's the part I wish I could have gone. I would go back to, and I'd go, don't stop talking about how you're feeling. Stop holding it in.
Oh, and that's a really powerful message. Don't stop saying how you're feeling.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And it must have had such a strong impact, because even in my marriage and everything else, I never spoke about how I was feeling. I still sometimes struggle with it.
Yeah.
And I think I struggle with it because I can feel what the other person is thinking or feeling. And so when you're feeling that, you don't want to hurt them anymore. You don't want to take them down that path. And so you turn off, you cut off. So yes, that would
end up in a huge conversation about empaths there, couldn't we?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We can go off tangent anywhere.
I love it. I love it. No, I think that's a really strong way to finish your segment too, is that don't stop feeling. Keep expressing what you're feeling. Allow yourself to be open to feel it, because that is part of your intuition as well. It's all interlinked.
Yeah. And the difference with nowadays is that you can connect with people online to discuss and chat about that sort of stuff. I had no one. When I was learning my spiritual stuff, when I was trying to get my understanding, all we had is books. So we didn't have anyone that I could bounce ideas off of. My ex-husband sent a book, one of my books, which was called The Course in Miracles. And I'm sure your listeners would have heard of The Course in Miracles, A Course in Miracles. I bought that book and I lost it. My ex-husband sent it to my father and told my father I had joined a crazy spiritual sect. And so my whole family were against me. Another reason to go. Yeah. And of course, the miracles, it's basically just 365 nice sayings and stories, and you learn as you go. And that's all it was. But it was like, lots of things. So even if you can't talk about your stuff locally around your family, there's lots of ways that you can connect online now and talk to people, or even chat about it or get more information that way.
Yeah.
So don't stop feeling and expressing.
I love it. And if you want to reach out to Susan and explain what you're feeling, because you need somebody safe to talk to, you'll find Susan's details below this episode, regardless of what platform you are on. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Susan. And I have no doubt you're going to be back one day soon.
I certainly will if you have me. Yes, please.
Oh, we have lots of stories to share together, don't we?
I know, we do. We can go into a lot more detail.
Oh, definitely. So thank you so much for being on the show, and I'll just do our quick wrap up. So join us next week for more stories from amazing women as we continue on this mission of normalizing the emotional cycles that all women experience and helping you to find the courage to take those next steps in life. And until then, love and kindness, everyone, and we will see you next week. If you'd like to join me on my mission to normalize the emotional and intuitive cycles all women go through, join my free community at MellyS.com.au.